We're talking about Kentucky football today.
Oh
Uh,
my.
ooh, doggy. They are coming off an absolute dismantling of the Florida Gators. They bring a 5-0 top 25 swagger into Sanford Stadium in
Yes,
what
sir.
is assumed to be a bloodbath that's going to happen on Saturday night. Is it really going to be that? Let's get into it today on Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. They're fantastic. They're glorious. More about them in a moment. But we are talking, it's very simple.
Yeah.
We're talking Kentucky week. We're talking about how Kentucky did just dismantle Florida, but they're coming in high on their horse and should not be. But they flapping the gums.
They coming. They gonna talk first, and then they gonna play football a bit later.
Real quick, just a quick survey of sneak peek of segment 2. How has it gone when people flap their gums at Kirby Smart and Georgia over the entirety of his tenure? How has that gone for them?
Over the last 22 consecutive, I would say it's gone poorly. Over the last 34 out of the last 35, I'd say equally poorly.
We have the first half winner, Shane Beamer. The first quarter winner, Old Hugh. Maybe Kentucky can take the first 2 games or 2 minutes. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about what Georgia needs to do this Saturday. So thanks for being here. If you're part of the podcast, subscribe to the audio as well as the YouTube. Helps your boys out quite a bit. Get over on the Subtext. You can find all the details in the description, as well as get over on Twitter with us. We are giving news, insight, and this week a special time, Daniel, because
it's just, as you started talking about the game, you couldn't help. I just can't help but smile. I'm so excited.
Your boys and some extra boys. Your
boys and their boys.
There is a caravan of boys. The
swarm.
Smith boys, the Monroe boys, the Shamblin boys. We're all going to converge. Meet in Athens. Let's see what happens.
In God's country. I can tell you what's going to happen if you'd like a preview.
Not now. Subtext. Wait for the subtext.
We'll get over there. Hey, we would love to reach out, tailgate. Love to connect with you. Gerf, we will have our children with us. So just plan activities accordingly. Thank you. Please and thank you. We are talking about Kentucky. They are 5-0. I wonder if you're listening to this podcast as a fan of another football team. Is your team 5-0? I'm just asking quickly for a friend, because I don't think there's many Missouri fans entering the chat.
No, they're not here.
So, yeah. So welcome, Alabama fan.
Last year, Alabama fan, how you doing?
Welcome, Alabama fan. But the undefeated teams are talking now. Yeah. So if you could just step over to the side.
So, Daniel, let's start here. The East it appears to be 2-team race, Kentucky and Georgia.
I mean, Missouri technically has not lost a game yet. Tennessee obviously still controls their own it in the East, but I don't, it ain't Florida. I'll tell you that. It ain't the Florida Gators. That ain't who's going to be winning the East. Kentucky fans, can we agree on that?
Hey, you just wait till old Sunbelt Billy starts getting his coaching staff and getting his players and getting his play calling and getting his system in. It's been a couple of years, but just wait.
These are the 2 best teams in the East, to your point, though. I believe that is absolutely true. These are the 2 best teams in the East, colliding in Sanford Stadium, night game on Saturday night. Let's talk about Kentucky first. When you
got to shake it out.
When you get the feel for Kentucky football, when you watch this team, which I know you have multiple times this year.
Yes.
When you watch this team, what do you see? What are your main takeaways on first glance at this Kentucky football team?
Guys, the moment is not too big for them. They are welcome. I'm going to say the same thing I say every single year because it's true every single year. The program at Kentucky is very predictable, and sometimes predictability is bad. Other times it's really good. They give themselves a shot every single game. Every single game. They are fundamentally sound tacklers. They are fundamentally sound up front on defense. They are fundamentally sound in the run game, and they are tenacious and they love playing. This is Stoops coached Kentucky. Guys, get used to it. And it's the same exact, but just now with talented transfers in. They have the foundation, and now they have extra pieces. Running back, quarterback, a couple other defensive guys transferred in. They love to play the style of ball that Kirby is famous for. Now, they think they can do it better than Kirby. This is going to be, especially coming off of Auburn week, this is going to be the point of contention with the rush defense. But just on first glance, this is a well-coached, well-disciplined, and they're excited. Daniel, this is they feel, rightly or wrongly, they're not delusional like Auburn fan. Auburn fan's delusional.
Yep.
Kentucky fan actually has the right, and Kentucky player has the right to say, we belong here. We belong here. This is where the top of the East is where we belong. And guys, they do. They're a good team, a real good team.
They are coming into Athens. This is going to sound dumb, and like, of course they are. Every team is, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But there's something different, and if you've ever played sports, you and I both know it. They're coming into Athens to win this game. Like, not to compete against the best, to measure themselves against the number one team in the country. They're coming in Athens to win this game. They believe that they're going to win this game. And it's a Mark Stoops team. It's got Mark Stoops' fingerprints all over it. And it all starts with Ray Davis, Clint, who is the best back in the SEC. And I apologize to no one for making that statement.
We apologize for thinking it was somebody from Ole Miss.
We apologize.
That's our bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray Davis is the best back in the SEC, and it is by several miles. Kirby compared him to DeAndre Swift in his presser, and I don't think that's an unfair comparison at all.
I see no lie.
He's 5'10", he's 220, 215, 220. He's got size to him, but the change of direction that he has is elite. Absolutely. You saw him do things to Florida defenders that is criminal, like just criminal activity.
As a matter of fact, 2 more broken tackles. Right now. Currently, 2 more broken tackles are made.
He's a problem. He runs behind an offensive line that is a problem. And Kentucky absolutely knows who they are, and they know who they want to be. They're going to come in to Sanford Stadium, and they're going to try to hit Georgia in the mouth and run the football. Now, are they going to try to get a bit creative with their game plan? Probably, being that this is a road game. It's not a home game. Being this is a different atmosphere. It's a different team. Yes. But make no mistake, Kentucky's not going to try to get cute. They believe that their best is better than Georgia's best. They believe that their best offense is better than Georgia's best defense, and they're going to come in and try to do what they do. And it's going to be up to Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart, and these Georgia defenders to stop them. And
because honestly, like, no joke, I know they have Devin Leary now. I get it. Don't think they're coming in slinging the ball 30 times against us. They won't. I guarantee you they won't. They will line up and say, let's go.
Devin Leary was 9 for 20 for 69 yards and 1 touchdown against Florida. 9 completions for 69 yards.
The heart of the defense for Florida is the front 7, not the back 4.
No, and like, it was just there. It wasn't even a thought to throw the football against Florida. He did have 20 pass attempts, only completed 9, and only for 69 yards. There's nothing down the field. Devin Leary, I thought, was going to open up the Kentucky offense a bit more, but it turns out so far this year, he has looked a lot more like a game manager whose job it is to get them in the right calls, get them in the right sets, and then not screw it up for Mark Stoops. And to his credit, he's been doing a great job of that.
Best thing Devin Leary did was convince old running back to come with him. That's the best thing he did. Transfer portal. Come on. Yeah. We're going to come back right after these, talk about what Georgia needs to do. But first, these. And these are, in fact, Game Time. Game Time's fantastic. Guess who used Game Time just recently to snag a 6-pack, a cool 6-pack.
A cool 6-pack of tickets. Maybe you're trying to come down to Athens Town. Maybe you're trying to get into this night game festivities. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, it's too late. All the good deals are gone. There's nowhere that I could go to get those last-minute tickets. I'll probably have to try to scalp them from somebody on the bridge wearing an oversized coat.
Don't
do that. By any means, don't do that. Go to the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today. Log in, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're not only going to get the best deal on the best seats, and trust us, your boys compared all the different apps. We're trying to save.
We went over 6 different sites and apps.
We had multiple phones, multiple screens. We had everything open. It looked like NASA over here. We're trying to acquire tickets. We compared all the different apps. Game Time, legitimately the best price, the best deal out there. And so not only are you going to get that, but you enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege and you're going to get $20 off that best price. Download the Game Time app, Locked On College, for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, so that's what we think Kentucky is about, and we have no evidence to the contrary. Mike Stoops comes in, starts wanting Devin Leary to win the game, 30 attempts. It is going to be not only outside of character, it's going to be an out-of-body experience to see him.
If Georgia is able to stuff the run and put the game in Devin Leary's hands, you and I will be dancing in the aisles by the midway through the second quarter.
Security will be called on somebody in our section.
May not be us.
May not be us. Somebody else might start.
But we'll be involved.
I will be.
Clint will be involved. Okay? Ask the Alabama fan sitting near us at the 2021 National Championship game
Let
if
the
Clint
record
will
state,
be involved.
We never touched 2 elderly gentlemen at Vanderbilt, and let the record state I never made a action towards that Alabama fan. I did look him down for a solid minute and 30, just dead eye contact.
26 carries for 280, 10.8 yards per carry on 26 carries.
Now, Daniel, are you talking about Georgia's defensive statistics against Auburn last week?
It's basically the same.
Or are you talking about Kentucky's rush offense last week against Florida? Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about Ray Davis.
Oh.
But Georgia's defensive allowance versus Auburn was virtually just as egregious. And so, on first glance, it appears to be a perfect storm against the Georgia defense. I don't necessarily think that's the case, and I don't think you do either, Clint.
No, sir.
So talk to the people about what's different about this matchup and what gives you some confidence as a Georgia fan that the defense, who looked bad last week, we agree on that. We have different levels of bad, but that we feel. But we agree that Georgia defense looked bad last week. But we're both fairly confident in the defense moving into this week. Talk to the people about why.
Hugh Freeze is Jim Harbaugh when he was with the Niners, and Ashford as well as Thorne are Colin Kaepernick. Okay. And the reason why the Niners are so good at rush is they had a great offensive line, a great running back, and a quarterback that added an element of the rush. I ask you, Daniel, is Kentucky even close with Devin Leary to add any element of the rush? No,
zero.
Not a chance. Now, Georgia fan, you're not going to like this because this has been the moniker for a decade, and I think that ghost is behind us because, again, every college quarterback ought to have the ability to be able to be elusive in the pocket. You've seen Carson Beck do it. He slid a little too early when he was scrambling this last week, but he has the elusiveness in the backfield. There's no more statues. Bledsoe is not a quarterback anymore in college football.
Correct.
Or
he
football.
was replaced.
He was replaced. But the reason why Kentucky, I think this is a different ballgame, is because it's more of a power run game. It's not a misdirection run game. If you look at Auburn, the thing that Auburn did really well was misdirection run game, pulling guards, pulling tackles, and that is called power. But when I say power, I mean I'm going to line up and punch you off the ball. That's what I mean. And that's what Kentucky does really well. It's a little zone. They do add some counter in there, do add some pulling guards, but it's zone. That's why DeAndre Swift is a good comparison, because DeAndre Swift was able to go with that 1 foot in the ground, up
stretch
the
it,
seam.
put the foot in the ground and gone.
That's what Kentucky does. And against this Georgia defense, Daniel, you're playing into our hand with that, because you add the quarterback element, you add the misdirection, you add the bad eyes for the inside linebackers, the missed tackling in the alleys, not up the middle of the safeties. That's what Auburn did well. Kentucky's not going to try to do that. They're going to try to go in between the tackles with a little zone, with a little just off tackle, right, off tackle left, a little ISO, a little motion with the Y and all that sort of stuff. You're playing into our hands with that.
You are, because the strength of this Georgia defense is twofold. One, it's the interior of the defensive line.
There it is.
And those guys are playing very physical and very solid. And two, it's the play of the edge defenders, particularly Chaz Chambliss against the run. We talked about before on the Overreaction Show. Chaz Chambliss did an absolutely unbelievable job, we thought, on Saturday. Bounced a lot of plays outside, crashed and blew up the tackle several different times on several different plays. Unfortunately, the linebackers and the safeties and the corners outside could not do anything with the quarterback and or Hunter coming out and bouncing it wide. You're not going to see now. Kentucky might try to do. They're going to look at the tape from Auburn and see what Auburn was successful with, and they're going to try to do it. They're not going to try to run Devin Leary because Devin Leary can't run. But they are going to try to probably get Ray Davis outside a little bit more, I would imagine. But to your point, that's not Kentucky's game. You're now forcing them to try to be somebody that they're not. For Kentucky to line up and try to out-physical Georgia, I do think is a bit of a different animal. Now, does the linebacker play still give me concern against a team like Kentucky? Yes, it does. Does the play of Tyke Smith in this last game give me concern moving into a game like this against Kentucky? Yes, because those guys are going to have to be physical at the point of attack. They're going to have to fit in the right gaps, and they're going to have to make tackles in space when they have opportunities. They cannot let 4-yard gains turn into 9-yard gains, turn into 12-yard gains, because if Kentucky gets rolling downhill, then they have the potential to make your life an absolute living nightmare.
Yes. Now, one thing we did get right last game, there wasn't a lot of drives that Auburn sustained from 20 all the way to the other side of the field. There were a couple turnovers. There were a couple big chunk plays. But Kentucky, if we limit them to 4 yards, if they're in between the tackles, and JDJ, as well as Smile, as well as Sori, as well as CJ, are good in between the tackles. They haven't been good bouncing outside to the alley when Chaz does actually spill it to the outside like he's supposed to do. But if they're going to be in between the tackles, that plays into our hands. And if that happens, we can limit it to 4 yards per carry. And Kentucky, that's the thing that I don't think any team can do against Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, because eventually they're going to sustain drive for 80, 85 yards. Auburn didn't have a lot of those. Again, short fields, big chunks. That's what blew everything open. Kentucky doesn't have that. That he's slippery in the backfield. I completely agree. DeAndre Swift-esque, but he's doing it between the tackles, which is, again, playing into Kirby's hands. So 4 yards instead of 9.
The counterpoint to that, though, is Kentucky got plenty of explosive plays against Florida. None of them were in the passing game.
No.
All of them were on the ground in the running game. And I submit to you, when Ray Davis finds a hole, and he's going to find a hole, and he is one-on-one in that hole with number 10, Clint.
I would like not to talk more. I would like not to talk more.
Well, you host a podcast where the thing that we do is talk. So you have made some poor choices in your life.
I don't.
He's going to put his foot in the ground. This is what I mean when I say that these players, 10, 23, 3, 6, the guys that we saw really underperform against Auburn, these guys are going to have to make plays in space.
Yes.
Because it's not just going to be flare outs to the wide receivers. It's not going to be deep balls down the field.
Nope.
Kentucky has plenty of explosive play capability. They're just not going to get it the same way that a lot of other teams are going to get it. We're going to have to make those tackles to limit those plays. Again, maybe it's a 7-yard gain and we make a tackle in space, but that saves a 30-yard gain down the sideline. That's what you need to do against this Kentucky team, to your point, to make them stretch out those drives. Let's talk about the Georgia offense versus the Kentucky defense right after this.
And this, Daniel, is in fact Birddogs. We've been on.
Nope.
No, well, I
got them on right now.
You know what? Yes.
I got the shorts on right now. I'm not going to. I'll knock my mic over. It's
going to be a whole thing. But if Daniel were to, he's going to show you the shorts or the joggers. These are fantastic things.
I'll have the joggers packed in the bag this weekend.
Oh,
we're going to wait.
We're going to be there. It's going to be a thing. The joggers are fantastic. Birddogs are fantastic. It's got the liners. You can take them swimming. You could take them working out. You could take them cruising down the boulevard, wherever you
just down Broad Street.
Tailgate to tailgate. Ooh,
my
goodness. You love to see it. That's what we'll be doing. You should do it as well. Get over to Birddogs right now and use promo code Locked On, and you get a free little gift with that. Promo code Locked On. You get a gift.
Locked On College.
Locked On College. Thank you. Birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege, or enter the promo code Locked On College. Get a free gift with every single order you do. Birddogs, the best feeling shorts on the planet.
Let's talk about this Kentucky defense, Clint, because they are good. Like,
are they?
They're good. They are 7th nationally in yards per play opponent allowed. They are 5th nationally in rushing yards allowed per game. They absolutely, you've seen Florida play many times this season. We saw them get embarrassed against a Utah team that, by the way, is a joke. Like, that Utah team is a joke and embarrassed Florida in week 1.
It's bad.
We also saw them absolutely turn the tables and embarrass Joe Milton, Josh Heupel, and the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Florida prides themselves on the ability to run the ball. That's their mindset. That's their MO. That is what they do. And Kentucky absolutely stifled them on the ground in this game. Part of what led to Kentucky's success. I mean, we're talking about Johnson had 42 rushing yards on 10 attempts. Etienne had 29 rushing yards on 11 attempts, 2.6 yards per carry, for a combination that I was told was the best running back duo in the SEC by Florida fans. Again, 5th nationally in opponents' rushing yards per game, 7th nationally in opponents' yards per play total. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting. They are 45th nationally in opponents' yards per play passing.
Hey-o.
Graham Mertz. Let me just ask you, Clint. One-word response is all that's necessary.
Okay.
Good or bad, Graham Mertz?
To effectively answer this, it's real bad.
Yeah, well, I said only one word, but I'll allow an adjective to just be an adverb to be put in there. Graham Mertz, not good.
No.
He was 25 of 30 in this game. 25 of 30. That's pretty good. For 244 and 2 touchdowns. Now, he did throw an interception. Kentucky's defense did force an interception in this game. They are opportunistic, and they do get after turnovers, and we've not even had time, really, to discuss. Maybe tomorrow's show, we'll just talk about turnovers. Because what is happening with this Georgia team in turnovers? It doesn't matter.
This is, by the way, this is really, really, really reminiscent of a couple of years ago. This storyline of the season is so reminiscent of a couple of years ago.
We'll talk about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Graham Mertz had actually a pretty reasonable day, and he was the reason Florida was even remotely competitive in this game. Not a good quarterback. Now, Georgia brings Carson Beck to the table. Better quarterback than Graham Mertz, and that is according to every metric, according to every eye test, according to every person who has ever seen a football game. Carson Beck, a better quarterback than Graham Mertz. Georgia has better playmakers on the outside than Florida does. Georgia has the most elite player in college football, and Florida does not. So this, to me, is the obvious on-paper way that if you're the Georgia Bulldogs and Mike Bobo, you say, we are going to try to attack this Kentucky defense because they are an elite statistical defense, but against the run primarily, not necessarily against the pass. Do you agree or disagree with that plan of attack for Mike Bobo?
Yeah, see, this is where I said, are they really good? Because if you look at eyeball tests as well as statistics, they are pretty good at maintaining against the big run plays. Again, stout on defense. They pride themselves in the trenches and on tackling. But where you can hit them is playmakers on the edge. That's where Kentucky gets in trouble. Now, I ask you, what did we see emerge this last game against Auburn? Because Auburn and Kentucky, very similar defenses. I contend very similar defenses.
Mm-hmm.
I still say, Daniel, I still say our defense is better than both of them, but very, very similar defenses. We exploited in the middle, on the hash, playmakers in motion, getting out in space, and then going Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, Rah-Rah, Dom Lovett, Rosemead. They played well when they were able to get out running on the open field. That's where Kentucky's going to be exposed, Daniel. So we're going to have to keep, because Mike Bobo and Kirby Smart want to have a balanced attack. This is evident as beyond evident. Again, if you think Carson Beck will ever throw 50 times a game, please stop being delusional. That will never happen. Okay. Ever.
I mean,
but Kentucky can be exploited. Their explosiveness in the pass game will be a liability for them. And I think with the emergence of Brock Bowers, the not the emergence, the continued success of Brock Bowers, and with Carson Beck, there's going to be explosiveness that happens in the pass game. So this is why I'm actually supremely confident. This Vegas line has me all feeling sorts of good this coming week. We haven't even
talked about the Vegas line. 17.
17. That's more than things are getting wacky. They just, again, somebody knows something I shouldn't, or I don't, because by all things last week,
Georgia has not covered a single spread all year.
Okay.
And 5-0, top 25 Kentucky team that has never looked better than they did last week against Florida.
What is happening? Well,
and now they come in and Vegas says, you want to bet on Georgia? Sorry, you cannot.
You can't.
You're not allowed. You are literally, we're not going to allow you to bet on and make money on Georgia.
Because I think this is what will happen is Stoops is going to Stoops and try to control the game. And this is going to get out of hand in a hurry. If they continue to stuff the run, what's going to happen is our playmakers are going to show out, Daniel. I have all confidence in that.
I actually do as well. I have confidence in Carson Beck in the pass game, especially at home. You saw what the deep middle was against Auburn, sat back in the cover 2, which, by the way, the fact that they were able to stop the run while sitting back in a cover 2 against this Georgia team should make you feel all kinds of feelings, because
we have no running backs.
You cannot drop 2 safeties against a Kirby Smart coach Georgia team ever and be able to contain the run game. Auburn had no trouble doing that. But the fact that they were sitting back there in 2 safeties meant that the deep middle of the field was where the hole was. And lo and behold, Carson Beck began to find it. Supreme confidence in our quarterback and our playmakers on the edge and our offensive coaches to get us in the right plays and the right sets to be able to make the most of those opportunities. I mean, it's only Tuesday and we'll get to locks on Thursday. And so there are no official predictions yet. But I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're laying 17 with Georgia in this game, you've never seen a Georgia-Kentucky game in your entire life. You've never watched it. You've never watched
let me tell you what they always are. They are always 13-16 at some point in the game.
People are throwing rocks at each other, and that is what it is. Like, that is literally the game. So I wouldn't lay 17 if my life depended on it right now. Now, by Thursday,
who knows?
You and I'll be on the road. We
will be together. We'll be together.
The lather will
Daniel
be
and I
get to build.
When we get together and we start talking.
Let me tell you, by Saturday afternoon, the app's going to be open. The FanDuel app's going to be open on the phone, and we're going to be laying them.
I can't guarantee what happens at any Chili's. That's not on me anymore.
Justin, just be on standby in case we need legal counsel. In case Clint tries to enter a Chili's.
We have been barred from 25 states in Chili's. This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see you all tomorrow.
See ya.